Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I've got a really cool game against Nicholas for you. Cool spelling. So the changes to Moto have gone live. 1v1 is a little bit of a drag now that they banned Winter War, but I guess WotC thinks control and consistency are unfun for the format overall. Nate's talked about it extensively, so I won't harp on it too much, but instead of competitive league now, it is friendly 1v1 Commander League, and they nerfed the prize structure, so you basically can't win cards for your deck anymore, or win tickets to be able to buy cards, so that's a drawback. But I've been playing a little bit of Oloro in this format. With Brea getting some hits, I figured I'd go back to the old granddaddy of Control that Nate and Brian played on their channel. I think Brian played it briefly. But Nate played it back when before the format split. I think Oloro might be pretty strong. It's very, very like slow control. Brea is very adaptable. Oloro, you sort of have to plan out like a full game off your opening 7 plus next 3 draws, give or take. So we're playing against Rayhan and Thrasios, and interestingly enough, Rayhan and Thrasios have the new border adjusted to them. Oloro does not. I don't know what that's going on, but it's a very fun commander all the same. So this is a great opening hand. So I'm missing a second black source to get this arena down, and looking at this hand, so I have Duress in case they're a combo deck, so I can do that turn 1. Needle is actually very good against them because you can name Thrasios and take away their incremental value. Furthermore, it means if they're going to leave mana up, they actually don't get to use that mana. Thrasios is a way for them to leave counter magic up, and if they don't need the counter magic, still be able to do something with the mana. So taking that away is pretty good. And Arena's a way for me to pull ahead of them if they can't remove it. They could be a very heavy green deck and like some sort of tribal or go wide style, in which case I need to find a tutor or a way to get to Toxic Deluge as quickly as possible, but I think this might be good enough. So we're gonna play with this. So let's see, yep, all right, so get that stack up, close that. So I'm gonna Duress, and I see no good hits, but a very slow hand for my opponent as well. They do have a Gilded Drake that we can play around. So I'm gonna Merchant Scroll here. Jump through the deck, sorry about that. I can pull it up at the end. But a Merchant Scroll for Limdol's Vault. And the reason I went with Limdol's Vault is because I can do a couple different things with this. I have a couple actual tutors in this deck, Grim Tutor being one of them, the 3 life for Black 1, because it is a slower deck. So my plan with Limdol's Vault is to upkeep Limdol's Vault and use it to find either a tutor or a deluge and black mana in the pile. Like if I find one of those combinations, or basically a way to get to Deluge and black mana, or Deluge and black mana. So that way, the following turn I can play Arena on turn 4. A little bit slow, but it means I can Needle plus Arena. And then the turn after that, I'll be able to tutor up a Deluge and sit on Deluge to keep them, like if they try to go wide, especially with how this hand looks, I'll have a way to deal with it. So very good. Pick up in the Limdol's Vault. I think it definitely belongs in the deck because this is a tutor, so Merchant Scroll just got me a pseudo-tutor. Especially in this deck where 34 life is enough to go through my entire deck because I've gained 2 life, which is another, or 4 life, which is another 20 cards that I can look through because of Oloro. So I go through a couple piles. Peacekeeper might be good, but I really don't want to tie up my mana. And I find Grim Tutor and Dimir Aqueduct. Now I could put the fetch on top, and I think about this for a sec. So I put Grim Tutor underneath Aqueduct, and I want to draw these in the order of Aqueduct, Grim Tutor, Ancestral. Now keep in mind I'm going to be playing Arena, so I'm going to draw Ancestral and the card underneath it, which is going to be Windswept Heath. And then I put Island on the bottom of this pile because I actually intend to shuffle that island away. So I'll play on my turn Aqueduct, or this turn that I'm about to draw the Aqueduct, I'll play that, bounce this Tundra. And then the following turn I'll draw Grim Tutor. Yeah, Grim Tutor. Yeah. I think it works out correctly. Yeah, pick up Tundra, pass turn. So I don't get to play Needle Healer here, unfortunately, but that's alright. Yeah, so I pick up Grim Tutor on this turn, and then the following turn I get Ancestral plus Windswept Heath, and I can play the Heath and shuffle away the island. because I really don't need to draw more lands with Dust Bowl wastes. My opponent has deployed Thrasios into Rayhan and Viridian Joiner, which is cool. I guess with Rayhan, it if you have a sacrifice, you can dump some power on it and make it huge. So I'm definitely thinking that Grim Tutor is a good pickup to go get Arena. Yeah, so I get the Arena down, or go pick up Deluge. So I get Arena down, I pick up exactly how I said, Vision, Heath, and I can Heath into Scrubland. And so I went for Scrubland instead of like my Hollowed Fountain here, because I actually want to secure my black mana build, because I have a ton of blue in 3 of my lands. I have blue-white in my hand. I want to make sure that if he gets a waste, I'm not going to be wasted off of black mana anytime soon. So this turn lets me set up with Grim Tutor and suspend Ancestral. Now I'm accepting that I might take a big hit here, depending on what he plays. I've seen Joiner, Snow Island, Tomb, Vesuva. So we know about 3 cards in his hand. So we might take a big hit, but I'm confident that Oloro is going to be able to try to keep me in this game, basically. My opponent plays Stunt Double, copying Rayhan, Legend rules the Rayhan with it, and dumps 6, because it's 2 different triggers, dumps 6 counters onto Joiner, and I'm just hoping that that 7 mana is about to pay for this Avenger of Zendikar. It'd be fantastic to take Avenger of Zendikar out of his hand, because this is like his wide thing. If I deal with Avenger and this board with this Deluge, I'm in great shape. My opponent's got a different plan. 6 mana, Rishkar's Expertise, draw 9 cards, or draw 7 cards, sorry. And then he gets to cast Mirror Mockery on Rayhan, which is interesting tech. So it means when Rayhan attacks, you make a copy of Rayhan, which then Legend rules, and you can put the copy into the yard, and dump 2 sets of 3 counters onto things. So he can make me pay 9 mana with his Deluge if he's planning, but I don't think he saw this. So he spreads the counters out, which is probably correct, but I guess against... I think this is correct in aggro matches, but I think in a control match where I have to have mass removal, it's better to put it all on one. Like, imagine if I dumped this all on Joiner. I'd have to pay 14 life to be able to deal with Viridian Joiner. He wouldn't attack me for as much, but I don't know. Maybe it's... I don't know. Maybe I'm making a big stink, and maybe this is the correct line against me. So we've got a decent field. So he pitches Avenger here, pitches Attrition, Rite of Replication, and Rishkar Pima Renegade. Sure, that's cool. Okay, so it turns Rayhan into a tap for elves. That's neat. So I drop down to 18, 17, up to 19. Good old Oloro. So Oloro's gained me 12 life this game. If I didn't have Oloro in my command zone, if I had some other Esper, I would be at 6 life this turn against him. And then I wouldn't be able to pay for Deluge. So right there, you can understand why Oloro belongs in decks. It lets you use Deluge as an actual Wrath and not really worry about the life loss. So I clear the board. He missed a land drop last turn also. He definitely had drawn it in 7 cards, I would imagine. And redeploys Rayhan. I get a huge pickup here in, yeah. I've used Ancestral's coming down soon. Avenger's gone. We know he still has Gilded Drake, so we don't want to run Oloro into that. This Ancestral's ticking down, and we get a huge pickup here in Stoneforge Mystic. And I believe we have exactly enough to be able to deploy Stoneforge, Signet, and Batterskull all this turn. Yeah, I see that I have enough, and there we go, Batterskull down. So he's going to take my Germ, and thankfully it doesn't let him take the actual Batterskull. He just gets a 4/4, and we have Stoneforge to be able to put it back down if we so choose, which is pretty good because now we can pay 5 to pick it up and put it down total instead of having to pay 7. True Name is an amazing draw this turn because True Name holding equipment is basically GG against a lot of opponents, and something like Batterskull that gives it Vigilance is 7 life on the attack and on the block. So 14 life a cycle is insane if I get this combo down. So we sort of got 1 turn to sort of draw out of it. So this is the type of deck where it's like, I know I don't have a counterspell, so I should just do as much as I can to deploy. He's already spent his Gilded Drake, but like he could have Prime Speaker into Force of Will, so I want to try to get down as much as I can this turn, because it's my best shot of winning. It doesn't make sense here to bluff something if I'm not gonna have anything to bluff. There's thought in like holding the Battle Skull and putting it down instant speed later, but I'd rather play around a Stifle effect, so I might as well do it now when he's tapped out. My opponent drops down Diabolic Intent, sacrificing Rayhan to dump counters onto the Germ, so that's cool. Rayhan costs 7 now, though, so that was an expensive intent, and it seems like his deck's very well positioned to take advantage of Rayhan's ability. But I think he's just seeing that he needs to get mana into play, so I fully assume that he tutored for this Urborg here. And you'll see it gets even better in a moment. So he's going to Reap and Sow into Cabal Coffers. All right. I get this Vision on my turn, and he gets the Viserys here down. So decent line. And then I think this is the biggest mistake Nicholas makes in this entire game, is attacking with the Germ here. So thinking that the Germ's safe because it's a 7/7, I would have to, like, he won't lose his Germ attack, but I'll lose mine to block. True Name Nemesis just changed his math. It's basically +3 to this Germ because he can't deal any damage to this. So we just trade Germs. He gains 7, I gain 4, because he can deal all the damage to my Germ. But I'm intending to move Battle Skull on my turn anyway. Now I get to get his Germ off the table. Now he has the ability to pick this up as the Phyrexian Metamorph and replay it as something like a True Name, but I'll have a 7-power True Name and he'll have a 3. That clock favors me. Now, that Ancestral went off, and I get Map, Inquisition, Abyss. Alright, so I don't really want to put Abyss down if I don't need to, because it will kill True Name if I can't feed it, and I don't want to be in that position. Inquisition, alright, I know he's got something in his hand, so maybe Inquisition will hit something. Mana Leak's very good, but the real, if I can deal with this Urborg combo, but the all-star is this Map here. So first I'm going to make sure I have enough mana. So move that on, get my hit in. And now I'm going to tap and go get, here's the deck. Didn't skip through it that time. So I'll pull it up by the spread in a moment. But it's some stuff that I learned from the Brea list, some stuff that I learned from Nate's old Oloro list. Pick up this Wasteland. Just this innocuous thing. Even though I have the Dust Bowl here, this lets me do more things this turn, basically. Because now I can Wasteland him and hold up Mana Leak, which is where I want to be with his hand. Because there's still stuff that could be scary at 5 mana. Pardon my phone. My apologies. Alright. So he plays Mana Gorger Hydra. And I think about leaking this, and I decided it's just not worth it. This thing will never outclass this Battle Skull True Name Nemesis. Because even if it attacks with like 10 counters on it, I get to soak up 5 of them, gain 7 life, and take 5 damage. So I think it's 11 spells before this actually starts not gaining life when I block. It's on my 12th spell where he starts dealing me 1 damage per attack. Now he can move the Battle Skull over. That's fine. I'm just going to cut him off mana, though. So I get a land drop, and I think about it for a little bit, and I decide I'm just going to play into this. I'm not really worried about it at all. So I get to Inquisition, see nothing of note in his hand. Play the Relic, and I think I save Abyss here. I don't think I play it out. Do I? Oh, I Dust Bowl him. So I Dust Bowl the Overgrown Tomb. So I see 3 triple greens in his hand, and Overgrown Tomb is also a swamp, so Coffers. So right now Coffers is it was mana negative by 1. Now it's mana negative by 2. It makes 0 mana. So by cutting off Overgrown Tomb, I'm putting him further away from getting Cabal Coffers to actually produce mana. I'm also cutting a green source because Bane of Progress. I'm not terribly worried about Bane of Progress coming down, but the more green sources I can cut off his board, the better this Mana Leak's going to get. Gaia's Cradle's not legal in the format, so I'm not worried about that. And I pick up Scrollback here, which is great when I have all of these extra cards that I'm not going to use. So I'm going to let his Mana Gorger Hydra keep growing. And I get to... so I Dust Bowl him there, and he just scoops on the attack. Because I take out his other green source, I'm cut, and next turn I get to come off his last black source. The game's going to be well and truly over. So I scroll back here. I look at what I would have seen off the scroll rack of 3, and I see Counterspell, like non-land. I think one was a Disenchant. So like I'm going to be able to put him at the point where if he taps out, I get to destroy this Batterskull. Or if he taps beneath 3 mana, his Batterskull's gone. I can leak his next play or counterspell his next play. He's well and truly locked out after I'm holding double counter and removal of her skull. Also, on being under a clock of 7 a turn, it means he only gets 2 more turns, or 1 more turn after this, because next turn is when I will throw Drake into the mix for the finishing blow. I've been keeping Gilded Drake back as a secondary blocker. It might have been incorrect, but I know that True Name Nemesis is going to win this game for me, like, given enough time. And this is the deck that wants to actually take more time to do something, that because it's you can give yourself a better assurance, I think. And I have this Dust Bowl going. There's just less ways for me to lose by keeping this back, I think, than trying to jam it and go fast. So my opponent scoops, and that's the game. So let's jump over to the deck list. All those decks became illegal. We're playing a 35 land list. We're playing the Flagstones Dust Bowl package that Nate talked about in one of the slightly newer Brea videos. Not the most recent 2 or 3, but it's decent. So we're playing Abyss because it's absolutely insane in a low creature count deck. Batterskull. We have Peacekeeper, which is our pseudo moat because we can't play moat in this format. So Peacekeeper's pretty good at faking it. So we're playing a land tax package. We're playing 3 islands, then we're playing 1 plains and 1 swamp as our other tax targets. So we're playing 5 basics for the tax, and we're doing it just because we don't want to be had by Blood Moon. So having that extra plains and that extra swamp guarantees that I can hit the mana. There's very few spells that actually cost more than multiple mana in this deck. Like multiple of a color, of any single color, and most of them come down early, or we spend early. So that's basically it. So 9 spells, most of which we will be able to cast off Signets and Talismans once we have our basics. So we're kind of a Blood Moon resistant deck, which is pretty nice. Force of Will doesn't count, obviously. One of the cool additions that I've added is this Bribery. It seems like one of the ways to beat mono green decks is to just get in them and destroy their lands and win off As Foretold. Another way is to never let them attack, because Peacekeeper actually would be very difficult for them to deal with, I think, because they are mono green. One of the other ways I figured, let's just go a little bit bigger, throw the Bribery in, and just take their best thing. They're gonna play big and nasty Eldrazi in these mono green decks. Let's just use that against them. I'll spend 5 mana for my Ulamog. You can spend more mana for yours if you can get to more mana. And if you can go Bribery into Geddon, and they have a mostly empty board, you're in great shape. Or even Bribery into and take their Ceaseless Hunger, the guy that exiles the top 20. You're in fantastic shape. Even without the Geddon, but the Geddon and the Ravages in here are very, very good. Palace Jailer, another type of value from the old Brea builds. I think it's at home in this deck, even though it might be a little bit harder to hold on to Monarch or regain it. It's good removal in the deck. It's a good target for Grim Tutor. It lets me gain advantage if I have the Abyss going. I can slam Jailer, eat one of their creatures, let Jailer die to the Abyss, but they don't have the creature back to be able to take Monarch from me. Kaya has been absolutely insane every game that I've drawn her. We're playing the normal suspect artifacts at 3 and the Trophy Mage to be able to go and get them. Because, so Crucible's very good. Sword and Shackles are your primary mid-range ways to win the game, as is Batterskull. because Oloro just buys you so much time. So we get to play these higher cost spells comfortably because we have the time to do so. Low down, we're not actually playing that much disruption, so we're playing Spell Pierce and Swan Song because they're the two best. Swan Song, them getting a 2/2 bird isn't the end of the world because we're gaining 2 a turn. And this is going to be good in the control matches where they're not pressuring our life total. In the aggro matches, we have Oloro to keep them from pressuring our life total too heavily. Duress, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, very good. Tax, Swords, Tithe. Tithe because we're playing in white-blue, so we can go get our Tundra or Scrubland or Hallowed Fountain whenever we need. Flagstones is there to get that stuff as well. And we're playing Mystic Remora because in the control matchup, Mystic Remora just can win a game by itself. If I play Mystic Remora out on like turn 2 off a Talisman, and then I have the Talisman to help me keep ramping out in front of the Remora, they can basically never do anything because if it gets me 1 card, it's paid for itself. And my opinion is like if I get 2 cards out of Remora and I've spent 5 mana on it, 4 mana or 7 mana, I'm still happy because they've had to play around it. Typically, I won't ever pay upkeep of 4 for it unless I think it's very good in the matchup and I've been able to get ahead of it. So usually 4 is when you will always let it go. Disenchant Aethersworn Canonist to also play against the green decks. It's mildly relevant, but it also has pretty good game against control decks. So if they cast a spell, I can then, while I have Canonist out on their turn, I can end step something, like a Teachings or a Foff, and they can't do anything in response. Or Notion Thief, or lots of stuff. JVP, because we have lots of good instants and sorceries. It's a great deck. We have Bitter Blossom because Oloro makes the life loss actually still gain 1, and it holds our swords. It stalls in the control matchup. It's another great, or it wins the control matchup, and it's great in the aggro matchup. It chumps mono green indefinitely, especially if you have a couple turns of like, I Wrath, and it takes them a little while to rebuild. You have a couple tokens by then to be able to chump for like a few turns at least. So it's all about this stall to be able to move up to this top end with these game ending like Abyss, Bribery, Tezzeret, Batterskull, Palace Jailer, Ravages. And it's just a fun atypical control or typical control deck to play. It's a little bit less... it has less closing power than the Breya deck, so this basically needs one of these like big things to be able to finish the game. The deck does actually cast Oloro every now and then, but you always want to be wary of getting him stolen, and that's the biggest drawback. If Oloro gets stolen, we are in rough shape. One of the best times to be able to cast Oloro is if you have Jace or Kaya in play, because it lets you bounce Oloro off Jace or exile it to Kaya and get it back on your turn. It's one of the best times to be able to have Oloro going is when you have that. Also, if you can put Oloro down off an As Foretold and then Armageddon or Ravages while you have Oloro in play, you'll basically win the game because you can then play a land and then be able to fuel Oloro every turn to draw past all of your stuff to be able to keep playing spells. Torpor Orbs in this deck, even though we have a little bit of a nombo with it, with 2... Yeah, that's double ETB. 3... This is As, so this is not affected by Torpor Orb, notably. I think those 4... I think those 4 are the only... So we're not playing Snapcaster, but these are the only 4 that actually care about Torpor Orb, and they're easy enough to play around. So like Trophy Mage, no, we lose an effect, or we'll sandbag Trophy Mage to pitch to Force later or something. Stoneforge is probably the biggest loss in this deck, as to being able to not use it off of the Torpor Orb, but I think it's still worth it in that situation. Just because Torpor Orb is going to be insane in the decks against the decks that it's good against, and against the decks that it's bad against, it doesn't matter that much. The big losses of not playing your red are Duretti and Dak, but I think they're acceptable losses to have a little bit more of a stable mana base, and that stable mana base lets us play things like the Grim Tutor, the Arena, the Bribery, the Cryptic Command, the Palace Jailer, all of these double cards because we have this a slightly more stable base. Now, Trinket Mage doesn't have too many targets, so it's not a huge loss. Needle, Map, and Citadel are the only targets in the deck for it. But Needle's very good at doing what it does. Map is at Throne of the High City or Wastelands typically, or Bounce Lands. And Darksteel Citadel is an un-Armageddonable land. So if you're going on an Armageddon plan, you can Trinket Mage up the Citadel itself, use the get Oloro down and get in, and then you'll keep the Citadel, which is enough to be able to pay for Oloro every upkeep to start draining them. So it's a five life loss on their part per turn, and you get 2 cards a turn out of it, which is pretty sweet. Hope you guys enjoyed the game. Hope you enjoyed the deck. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my content to anyone you think might enjoy it, and so that way you can stay updated on my channel. It's good to be back and recording some a little bit. I've been switched back to overnight shifts, so that's why all of my times will be all wonky at like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. recordings on my days off. See you on the next one, guys.